Welcome to the Somewhat Frank podcast, hosted by me, Frank Gruber, and joined by my friends and colleagues, Jen Consalvo and John Guidos. This podcast explores the latest trends and advancements in technology and business, including emerging startups and how they shape today while looking forward towards the future. We also enjoy testing new gadgets and products and sharing our findings too, along with our favorite pop culture picks like music, books, and what we're streaming. This podcast is produced in collaboration with our company, Established. Ready to dive in? Time to be somewhat frank. And welcome back to Somewhat Frank Podcast, episode number 62. Hope you're all having a good time out there and everything's going well. Today I am joined by Jen Consalvo and Simon Kahan. Unfortunately, Johnny Good Times Guidos is out today, taking advantage of summer, and he'll be back soon. But how's it going, Jen and Simon?
Oh, very good. Very happy that it's still summer. For all those who keep saying it's half over, nope. There's still a good chunk of summer left, and I intend to enjoy it.
I'm a summer enthusiast, so I agree with you there. Definitely want it to last a little bit longer. Simon, how are you doing?
Good, I'm doing well. I actually hadn't thought about that. We're halfway through summer, and now I'm anxious and sad. I didn't put two and two together. I'm doing well, though. Thank you.
Good. All right, so this last week was a blur. Last couple of weeks have been a blur. Post this appendix surgery. I've been cleared to do activities, so that's exciting. And got to do a little bit of music. I called last week Music Week in New England because I felt like every big band and act that I wanted to see was in town, starting Sunday through like the rest of the week. And I got a chance to see a couple of them. So I went to see Dave Matthews for like the 27th summer or something. I've been seeing him in the summer, so that's going to age me a little bit there, Simon. But yeah, definitely was a good time. And then obviously got to see Mountjoy and Noah Khan on Friday at Fenway Park, and got to see you, Simon, up there dancing around on stage. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming. Our families received a lot of attention since going on stage, mostly positive. A few don't seem to enjoy our dance moves very much. Just some jerks from like Minnesota or something on TikTok. I searched up their profile. It was great. It was really fun.
Awesome. It seemed like a really fun end to the kind of the tour, right, in the US, and now taking a break. So that's great. Jen, you obviously got to go attend as well. What have you been up to?
Yeah, so concert week was awesome to just get out there, hear some music, get some fresh air, see some friends. So love that. It's interesting. It always tends to coincide with a very busy time at work when we're doing contracts and things like that. So I'm not going to say that it's not stressful as we try to do it all at once, but overall it was a great week and good time.
Yeah, in summer, obviously you can't pause summer. That you kind of have to keep rolling when there's good weather and things are planned. You got to kind of roll through it. So that's part of it. Simon, what about you? Aside from your cameo on stage there, what else have you been up to?
So my entire family is back on the farm in Vermont right now, which is great. It does mean that we are around 45 to 40-ish minutes away from civilization a little bit, and there's no cell service. But we've been fishing. I caught the most fish, and my siblings immediately started delegitimizing the entire fishing day. They can't let me be happy, and that's okay. But it was a good time, and I'm hanging out on the farm.
Very nice. What kind of fish are you catching?
So mostly smallmouth bass, a few sunfish, and unfortunately no brook trout, but mostly smallmouth bass.
Fun, very fun. Awesome. Well, it sounds like you took home the championship there, the Khan family championship for fishing. I've also been outside a lot. I've got this new device that I've been testing. We're going to jump right into it. This company, Auto Lawn, if you go to otolawn.com, you can check it out. They have a lawn robot, not the kind that mows your lawn, but the kind that waters your lawn. And so, when you start thinking about like lawns and like keeping them green and keeping plants alive and all that outside, you kind of have to think about there's a couple options, right? You can invest in like a really expensive irrigation system where they're literally going to have to like lay pipes in your lawn and dig it all up and set it all up. Or you can be out there with your hose. You can set up a sprinkler, like a regular sprinkler, but you're still gonna have to fuddle around with like the hoses and make sure it's watering and all that. Whereas this device, it's about the size of like a shoebox almost. It's solar powered. It literally, you set up a perimeter or specific spots you want it to water, and it literally just waters for you. It's pretty amazing. We'll take a look here as it's actually doing it. At this video here of me, I took a video of it while I was working, and it basically adjusts like the water based on the schedule. So like it does real-time weather conditions and reads if it's going to be a rainy day, it doesn't water, or if you want to like shift like based on certain times of the day or whatever. And so you can set up these different zones, set up the timing, and then it kind of waters it for you and it just kind of shoots it out. It literally prints the water out on your lawn, and it's pretty cool. And it was really easy to set up. Obviously, there's some drawbacks in like if you have a huge lawn, it's not going to work for that. You're going to need multiple devices. It shoots about 30 foot radius and uses that kind of nozzle at a 360 degree throw, kind of get it around the yard. So it's about 2,800 square feet that it kind of covers, which is, front yard, one side of my front yard is about that. So it works out pretty well. And obviously they also sell these like little pods you can put into like, basically fertilize or like for pest control, like if you've got mosquitoes or ticks, you can spray some of that stuff out there too. So really interesting product. I love it so far. It's pretty neat to watch it just do its job, and saves me a ton of time out there with the hose or the sprinkler, watering the lawn. So pretty cool.
It's amazing for people like me. So Frank would be perfectly happy to go out there and water. Like to me, I'm like, I don't even understand. Like that is what rain is for. If it doesn't rain, it's okay. It'll get rain it'll rain eventually. And if the lawn gets a little brown, whatever. Like it's not a big deal. But I agree, like Frank loves a beautiful yard and I get to benefit from it because it is gorgeous. So I love this thing because if Frank is gone, like leaves town for a week or so, this will do the job and I don't have to go out there and do it or get in trouble later for letting the lawn die. So this is a beautiful option.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely going to be really clutch. And it made me wonder, like, is yard work exercise? And I Googled it and found an article that was talking about it. And technically it is exercise, and there are huge health benefits of raking, mowing, digging, all this stuff. And so just works different muscle groups. So if you were wondering, is that exercise when you're out there digging those holes or whatever, or, planting things, which I've been doing a lot of lately, I feel like planting things. It is exercise. So that's pretty cool.
So wait, that brings up a great question, because my automatic thought is that every physical movement I do is exercise. I go for a walk, I get the mail, exercise, I go up the stairs 3 times a day, exercise. Right, Frank, you're a little more hardcore when it comes to that. It's like, unless you've really worked up a sweat, it's not really exercise. Yeah, Simon, where do you fall on this scale?
So I'm sort of on the same boat as you, Jen. My dad would make me mow the lawn in high school, and I would take my shirt off because I thought I would be like one of those like Ripley guys mowing lawns and stuff. And I thought I would get tanner because I'm sort of like translucent on the tan scale. Anyways, yeah, I always sort of think that like if I pick up a glass of water, like I'm taking some energy to pick up water. I don't know. Maybe this speaks to my lack of exercise in general, but I'm on the same boat.
Yeah, I kind of like to have a little more segmented, like it's actually like measurable. Like I ran a mile, or I biked, whatever, or I swam, 1,500 yards or whatever. Like, so I think that's where I kind of gauge it. But I guess it is exercise. I mean, that was why I was Googling it. I was like, is it
dance at a concert, exercise?
There you go. Check that off. All right, let's move along. We got a lot happening in July has been nuts. It's been a crazy month, especially on the political landscape. And we don't generally talk about politics, but so we're going to keep this more high level and also focus more on the tech kind of startup kind of stuff that we normally do. But it is worth talking about it because I think it's literally unprecedented, like what we're living through right now in the last, and I hate to use that word because I feel like we've overused that word, but this, the last month or so has been nuts. If we can kind of summarize here, we had this debate with our current president, Joe Biden, and facing off against Trump, which is the earliest debate they've ever done. Joe Biden didn't fare as well. Then that was followed up by a lot of feedback, and then people like George Clooney wrote an op-ed in New York Times saying, maybe Joe Biden, our current president, should not run for president re-election and somebody else should. And obviously that then turned into right into the RNC convention where, Donald Trump was getting a lot of support, and then ultimately had someone try to assassinate him, which is just crazy to think about all this in the same month. And then, he names his and obviously that didn't happen at the same time. He was at a rally, and then they had the RNC. But he had an assassination attempt, and then the RNC, and then he named his vice president DJ Vance, which has kind of a VC background, and he's got the whole book Hillbilly Elegy, and he's now his running mate as vice president. And then the same kind of timing, in a week later, we got Joe Biden, who's now got COVID, with more people calling for him to step down from his re-election campaign. And then he ultimately did step down. And then you've got Kamala Harris jumping in as the endorsement and then getting a ton of support. And then you've got, even though Obama's came out supporting them, as many and many others. And obviously now we're like wondering who her running mate's going to be. And we haven't even got through July yet. So it's been nuts. I mean, it's hard not to pay attention when it's a lot of the news, unfortunately, is all about what's happening there. But it's important. It's obviously elections are important, and it will impact policy, which could impact, some of the things that are happening in technology. I should have even mentioned, like I mentioned, Elon Musk coming out and supporting Trump. It was Mark Andreessen and Horowitz, which is a big VC firm in Silicon Valley, one of the biggest. They came out and supported Trump. But then now I'm wondering if they're going to flip back now that Kamala Harris is out. And I know that there's a lot of folks also potentially flipping. And, Kamala Harris has had record-breaking support since she jumped in and raised about $81 million in a single day, which is a new record for fundraising. So really interesting to see. I know other tech billionaires and whatnot are coming in and supporting Harris now too. So it's a race. We got about 100 days of it left, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe this just kind of points to my lack of understanding, but what are the major like tech related policy differences between the two? Because I'm actually not familiar.
Right. So regulations around AI, right? Like things about like that would halt technology, or not even halt technology, but like somehow like have oversight on technology that would be newly created, right? And I think that's what the concern was, that, oh gosh, like they're going to regulate like OpenAI, for example, or some of this other new AI technology that could...
Or any technology.
Yeah, so, I mean, social networks is another one, right? Like we had a lot of talk about, children and using social networks and the impacts of that. Obviously. What's that?
Privacy is always an issue. Privacy. So there's all these different, or even when we start to look at antitrust, looking at acquisitions and the size of companies. So there's this whole bucket of issues that pertain to sort of tech, right? The big general bucket of tech companies. And it's something that always comes up of, who's going to be favorable, who's going to sort of promise to keep their hands out here and let us just have free reign of innovation, which is, sort of like it's not even, people have to understand now, like this is not the earliest days of technology. We're advanced enough. We have real issues that do require some oversight. And so it really comes down to like, how much oversight do we need? How much is Congress trying to step in and really try to shape what's going on? Particularly, and one of I think the issues we've seen a lot in most recent years is that we have a very aging group of regulators, right? And do they understand what's going on? And so it's interesting to see some new, younger energy come into this race and hopefully into other local races, and see how that also shapes up.
Right. And we've talked about some of these things, like TikTok, for example, having ties to China, like, and that whole, what's going to happen there with that, right? Like that's partly, that's policy and that's politics. Yeah. So I think there's that potential as well. And obviously there's impacts on the startup side. So with how you handle taxes, I mean, as much as like, there's capital gains issues with like when you actually sell a company, and there could be changes in regulations there potentially. And that's scary to anybody that's a VC or investor, or somebody that's at a company that, is growing a startup, right? So
totally. Just to circle back on the regulation aspect, just because I feel pretty strongly about this, where I feel like when social media in the 2010s, early 2000s was coming up, It was sort of this unfettered, totally free market environment with very little regulation. And it took us like 15 to 20 years to see sort of the negative effects that sort of unfettered model has had, especially on like young people and disinformation. So my personal take is that I worry we're going to, again, realize a little bit too late the dangers of not providing oversight on emerging technology, especially AI.
Yeah, it definitely is a concern. I mean, we're definitely seeing some of that now, like you said, with social especially. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they all come out on this particular topic, and we'll find out in November what people
yeah,
for sure.
It'll happen. So
yeah. But
well, and to a certain extent, I mean, the president only drives so much of that agenda. I mean,
right.
there's a much larger governing body here to consider,
Mm-hmm.
but it will come up, right? And people will want to know, where does she stand?
Well, that it's not just it's both, right? Where do they both stand? And then Congress too, obviously has a play in that, but also judges have a play in that, because if things get taken to the Supreme Court, now somebody's got to make a decision on what is a monopoly or what's not. What should we do with this company? What should, there's things that can happen that get all, they cover kind of all the bases there. So in our government, so I think, and there's, they all kind of have the president does have a play in some of that stuff. So not entirely, but there's definitely influence. So
great point.
Yep.
Our judges matter. All the judges matter.
Yeah, they do. All right. So, in kind of a lighter note here, I don't know if you guys saw this, but literally anybody else is running for president on the ballot in Tennessee. So you can go check that out. This person changed his name to literally anybody else and has been added to the ballot in Tennessee. And I'm curious to see what kind of draw literally anybody else gets.
Is his last name anybody else?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Okay, so it's like literally any like comma. Well, no, not comma. So his children be something anybody else.
Yep, and we'll drop a link. If you go to literallyanybodyelse.com, you can learn more about literally anybody else, which is kind of funny.
Isn't there someone named like Bodie McBoatface that always runs or something? There's always like these like faux. I actually think it's hilarious personally, but there's always funny candidate names.
Yeah. This is the first time I've seen anything like this, so I don't know. It's it's pretty funny. Okay, moving on from politics, we're going to talk about TechStars, which has got it's an accelerator, obviously. It's been doing this for a while. They've got their second annual State of Innovation survey, and it reveals 76% of founders are optimistic for their startups in 2024. This is an annual report that they started last year, and then obviously they get a kind of a feedback from all of their founders, which I think they have like 4,000 something founders that took the survey. And yeah, so it's pretty interesting outcomes. They're thinking that IPOs and M&A are not expected to return this year. Let's see what else. Only 40% are confident that M&A will recover, and 17% believe in the return of IPOs. So that means that they're really aiming to be acquired or remaining private, and that's majority are not going to go public. So that's interesting, especially from a funding perspective. As VCs, and there's a lot more VCs now, they may not be getting the outcomes that they expected if they're not IPOing, or if there's not as much M&A. But I guess 34% aim to be acquired, so that's interesting. Do you guys look at the report? Did you get any other things to pop out?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. One thing that is really catching my eye is that it says 17% of founders work 70 plus hours a week. That's crazy, right? Or am I just not working?
Startup land is a hustle, man. It's not a joke. And I think that's where like there's been a lot of push for like more work-life balance, but in that environment in startup land, it's hard because especially when you're early on, you are making the donuts and selling them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's crazy.
With our first company, we definitely worked 7 days a week.
Yeah.
We would often work late into the night. And I think one thing that happens is when you're first starting off, because you don't have a team, you're doing it all. So that really can really, just put a burden on you, right? And you're at the same time, you're really excited about what you're starting. So like any other profession, there's, when you first get started, you're just like, you're in it like 24/7. Over time, it's just not sustainable. So there are always those people who try, who sort of like get addicted to that sort of lifestyle. But in the end, you know, if you're going to be in this for the long term, like, you know, most companies are around, like they don't sell, they're not, most companies are not overnight successes, right? You've got to be in this for 5, 10, 15 years or more. You kind of have to figure it out. Otherwise, you're really setting yourself up for personal health disaster.
Yeah, that means it's definitely a challenge. We've seen a lot more of that, you know, even mental health, right, being a big part of and push, especially by TechStars and others, right? Because you need to be able to take breaks and kind of make sure that you get what you need both on both sides of it.
So listen, if you're a startup out there, pace yourself. It's a marathon, not a race, not a sprint, and find that time to just reconnect with yourself, because you are not your company.
Yeah, that's a big
There's
one.
more to life.
Yep, definitely a big one. But you know, 17% work 70 hours plus hours, 31% work at least 60 hours. So it's a lot, right? If you're going to take on a company and you're going to be doing it with your own brute force to begin with, and then eventually it does get easier as you do add more team and get more processes in place and more structure, and that's when things kind of lighten up a little bit. But I don't know. I mean, running a company, there was never a moment when I ever felt super comfortable. Like you've got to be okay with uncomfortable, I guess is my point. Is like until things, you know, it's acquired or you IPO or whatever, I think there's just this like churning like something waiting, you know, I got to figure out the next thing, right? So that's definitely ever present. Let's see, what else did they had some innovation sectors that was the majority of the founders are not building AI startups. So that's interesting. 60% of the founders are not building AI. 31% use AI as an enabler, and 41 have AI as a direct component of their business. So 41% are AI-driven companies of some sort. So that's probably way up, right, from years, or probably last year and probably years before if they had done the survey. And then the other thing, Jen, we talked about ecosystems, right? There was a big part about ecosystems, right, in this report. Where was that? More or less.
Yeah. So almost half of respondents believe that Silicon Valley will remain on top over the next 5 years, and I don't think they're wrong.
Yeah, but
that's interesting. Only 50%.
Yeah, only 50%. But you know, a lot of the tech startup companies are outside of Silicon Valley, so that's interesting. And then you know, just having an ecosystem.
This was global. Sorry, this was a global survey.
Right, it was a global survey, right? So they were all over the country, all over the world. And then, but I think there was something around like ecosystems as well, having an ecosystem around you, right? To be able to, I don't know if I can't find it right now, but either way, interesting report. We'll drop the link in the show notes. You can check it out, read the full report. Started out by Mr. David Cohen, who's now CEO again. David Cohen took over as CEO again recently, and he I think writes the first kind of page or whatever of the report. So check that out if you would like. And I think kind of dives right into another report that was put out by Crunchbase recently, which is part of TechCrunch, or was part of TechCrunch. VCs are investing in AI still, which is not a surprise. For, you know, pretty much all these companies we talked to, or if they're not AI, they're you know, they're raising, but it's taking longer. But yeah, there's definitely still generative AI remains strong, but yeah, it's still, I mean, obviously a very hot sector. So any thoughts?
That seems, you know, I'm not an expert in sort of the investing trends in AI, but it seems natural, right? Like they would start when the boom or the craze kind of started, you know, everyone was trying to get in on the action. And then it maybe becomes more apparent that obviously, like typically not all the companies are going to be super successful. I find it's interesting that they mentioned that XAI received $6 billion in early stage investments. Is that Elon Musk's AI venture?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and it's just interesting.
It skews the results, obviously. And, you know, first half of 2023, 225 startups raised $12.3 billion from VCs, with early stage deals dominating the funding. But when you throw things like XAI in there, taking 6 billion, like, I don't know if that's the same, you know, apples to apples there, but either way, it's like, that's a big chunk. So you still have those like noteworthy people raising a ton on AI right now.
Totally. The report also mentions a lot of legal and regulatory challenges just surrounding the use of like copyrighted data. And I know there's a ton of lawsuits going on right now. I know the New York Times is suing OpenAI for the use of their articles and the training data. My prediction, and without having too much knowledge on it, is that no one's going to care and continue to use all the data they can to train these LLMs. But it'll be interesting to see how like these lawsuits go down, especially as these companies start to make more money as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Go ahead. Or how the companies start to mature and adapt to their partnership models, right? So as they start to figure out like, oh, there maybe are some interesting new ways we can approach these partnerships so that we're not just, asking forgiveness later or dealing with it in court.
Many of these AI companies are obviously not yet profitable. They just have a lot of investors, and obviously strategically they think that these are like going to be huge businesses, and they're changing the way we work. So I think that's part of it. All right, so let's talk about quickly, because I know we're running out of time here. Couple things related to this mammoth. So there's a huge mammoth deal that fell through this last week or so. Wiz, which was a cybersecurity company, was going to be acquired by Google for $23 billion, and that deal was announced, and then quickly it went away, and they're now going to go pursue an IPO, which is different and new. So they're aiming to IPO, and I guess they have $1 billion in annual recurring revenue, which is pretty impressive. I don't know. It's interesting to see like these types of things like splash the front page of whatever publication and then just be like gone. It's like, what the heck? I'd love to be in that room to see what happened behind the scenes,
Well, and I actually think this is a good thing for the market. I think Google is too big, personally, just my own personal view. And I think the, market diversity is good for risk mitigation. So the more independent players that we can have out there, I think the better overall for innovation itself. And again, for diversifying the risk, especially when we're talking about cybersecurity and what we just saw this
last week,
having less consolidation in the industry is probably better overall for the marketplace.
And you're talking about what happened this last week with CrowdStrike, which on July 19th, there was a faulty update with CrowdStrike, which caused Windows systems to crash with a blue screen of death, and it brought down, 8.5 million people or something? I mean, it was a lot of people, and in fact impacted airlines, it impacted a lot. So I think that's the concern, right? We have too much banking on like one technology, they go down, and we're now in a blue screen of death.
Yeah. Can you imagine being that CrowdStrike employee who did the code or whatever, brought down the country? That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show you, we saw some of the same stuff during COVID, right? And it's not just in just like software, it's supply chain, right? Like simple thing, like we're all tied together in some way, and if one like little thing kind of changes, it does impact others. So
it does raise the question though, like we kind of got off easy. This was people's flights in the summer, like it's an inconvenience, but it was not life or death for people, right? Like what happens when it is, and why do we have so much latitude for such a this was a huge failure. This is a company, CrowdStrike, that literally is a service for, I think, more than half of the Fortune 500 companies in the US. So that's a pretty critical point of failure that's unregulated, which, fine. But this goes back to my point of, why are we so okay with that? Why is there not more outrage? Like, hey, what could happen here? Where are we going? And again, maybe pushing for more of that market diversity and allowing more, additional leaders in this space to mitigate. So it's very interesting as these things pop up to see, how is the country reacting?
Right.
How's the market reacting?
Yeah, well, people were slowed down for sure. That's one way. People didn't get to their locations on time flight wise, but yeah, you're right. It's inopportune in the summer, but it's also, you're right. It's like, hopefully no one got hurt in the process, right? Like that's kind of,
yeah. It could be like incredibly dangerous. Yeah, it could be a very dangerous situation. And I'm just glad that it was a mistake and not some cyber attack.
Right. Speaking of diversity, and diversity in the market, in other Google news, OpenAI is launching, they announced today, they're launching SearchGPT, which is an AI-powered search tool, and it's going to aim to compete directly with Google search. So, Jen, to your point of maybe Google being too big, there might be another player here in the market, along with Bing and some of these other searches that have been around a bit. And yeah, they've been around for, OpenAI has been around for a while, and I've already been using it for search-related things in the last year. So it's interesting that this is going to come out, and it's not out yet. You can sign up for the wait list right now, so go check it out. But it'll be doing conversational kind of searches, right, for things you're trying to figure out. So, and obviously personalized responses based on your previous feedback or questions and things you've asked. So, I mean, it could change the market, in my opinion.
Is it similar to sort of Google's AI implementation? When you search something, it sort of gives you like a summary of what you're looking for?
I mean, yeah, they've got some videos if you go over there and check it out in the link here, but it's more or less like if you're saying, give me the summer concerts in Boone, North Carolina in August, it'll list them all.
Instead of just sending you to like a website that has concerts in North Carolina.
Right.
And then you have to figure it out for yourself.
Right. It literally will link them all up saying, here they are, like, so that saves a lot of time. And people like to save time. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. I think people will be drawn to it for sure.
Yeah. And here's a question for y'all. I don't know if you've noticed, but personally, when I Google stuff, it's like a huge pain now to get to what you're actually looking for. Like it'll be 10 sponsored articles or like 10 sponsored products. Mm-hmm. And you have to finally find like what you're actually looking for. It's a huge hassle. And I like how this is providing an alternative, because I felt like their service has been just kind of a pain increasingly.
Yeah, and that's their business model to make money, right? Those sponsored links are paying for Google to be Google and allow them to do the things that they do. So while it's a pain, it has made them a huge company. And so far, like we talked about a second ago, like OpenAI, they take theirs from subscription revenue right now. They don't have any advertisers. So they're operating off of other people's money right now. They're not generating, some substantial revenue from advertising. So it'll be interesting to see as they continue to grow, like what they end up doing. Are they going to go an ad model, or are they going to go a paid model, or is it going to be some other model we don't even know? I don't know.
I think at the end of the day, Simon, to your point, this is competition, and competition is good, because it does force you, it allows you now to look back and say, oh, wait a minute, I am using a subpar experience because that has felt like it's been the default, right? Like it's just muscle memory. But what happens when all of a sudden you have another major player and you can like that you start to create your own muscle memory around? It's just like before Google was Google. When we all started switching, it was like, whoa, there's a simpler way to find stuff from the internet now. And it was amazing. And now someone's giving them a run for their money, and maybe we'll start to see like Google change. I mean, we've already seen how they incorporated some AI results, which has been better, and made some improvements in their results.
Yeah, it's definitely making them think about it, and they're making changes on the fly. So we'll definitely see some changes in the way that Google reacts, because they don't want to lose their space there. So that'll be obviously good. All right, moving along, we're pushing time here, so I'm going to say let's switch to our reading. And lately, I got this book sent to me by the authors. It's The Venture Mindset: How to Make a Smarter Bets and Achieve Extraordinary Growth. It's new and it's out there, and it's really interesting. This book is full of powerful, practical lessons on changing how we think and act, and that's Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google. It's worth a read. I'm in a couple chapters of it already, and it's really about thinking about how VCs think, but then also how applying that to business. So I'll drop the link in the show notes here, but it uses examples from companies like Amazon, Google, SpaceX, Zoom, and a few others. And it's written by, gosh, I'm gonna butcher their names here, but I'm not gonna know. How do you say that name? Who wants to take a crack at it?
Ilias Strebilev and Alex Gang.
He's a professor at at Stanford, and then Alex Dang is a venture builder. So great book. Sorry that I'm terrible at pronouncing people's names. And great job, Jen.
Ilya and Alex.
Ilya and Alex, yeah. But thank you for sending this. It's really interesting. They use these 9 principles based on research and experience that they've had, and it's can be applied to business or life and everything. So check it out if you get a chance. And anybody else been reading anything?
My email.
I wish I could say I'm doing more. I'm reading this book called Soldiers Don't Go Mad. It's about like the first treatment cases of PTSD in World War One. Frankly, it's like really depressing. It's a good book though.
Nice. All right, moving on to watching the Olympics, the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris, kicking off. Lots to watch there. You got the opening ceremonies, and then obviously, I'm looking forward to swimming and gymnastics and everything else that happens when they do this thing.
100%. And for me, every once in a while, I just need to watch something that'll make me laugh. And so I'm just catching up on Loot because Loot is hilarious with Maya Rudolph. She's so great.
I love Maya Rudolph. Have you seen Bridesmaids?
Yes, of course.
So funny. I know, it's classic. I saw it with my parents when I was young, and it was like the most uncomfortable experience ever. For me, I've been finishing up. I talked about it in the last episode. I've been watching Presumed Innocent, which is like a courtroom lawyer drama. Last episode happened.
Oh, it did?
Kind of a disappointment. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it. Well, oh gosh, I forgot you're watching it. Okay.
No
Frank,
spoilers.
give it a watch.
No spoilers.
I will say Jake Gyllenhaal, big man crush on that guy. He's a handsome dude. He looks great in the show. But yeah, give it a watch, Frank. I want to hear your thoughts later.
Yeah, it's I haven't caught up to the last, I think I'm 1 or 2 behind, but it is very suspenseful, very interesting. Reminds me of, like I said, some other things I've seen in the past, but curious to see which direction they take this mystery. So I'll tune into that this weekend if I can. Anyway, all right, so going to eating and drinking. This week was a fun week for people, I think, because it was National Ice Cream and National Tequila Day this past week, which I've never had the combined. I've never had tequila ice cream, but if it's out there, probably tastes good. But I wanted to ask you guys, what's your favorite ice cream? And I'm going to start with Shane's Moose Tracks. It's not my favorite, but I was just thinking about it. Shane's Moose Tracks is a great ice cream. It's out of Sanford made. I'll drop a link in the show notes. And Jen and Simon, do you guys like ice cream?
Yeah, I do. And I'm going to say, typically I'm like pretty classic when it comes to ice cream and go for like a dark chocolate type thing. But every once in a while, I have to go back to my childhood favorite, which was peppermint stick. It's like pure sugar. Is so good.
And I haven't heard about that one in ages. There used to be this type of ice cream called dinosaur tracks that I would get as a kid. It's like blue. Maybe this is like a common thing. So definitely dinosaur tracks. Plus, it has a really kind of fun name. So
that is fun. All right, and then since it was National Tequila Day as well, we're gonna give a shout out to our friends, Mosler's, who have a tequila company, Telson Tequila, which I have some. I don't drink tequila that often, but if I did, I think I would do like a margarita. I don't know. I can't really do it straight. Like I know people put it on the rocks and stuff. I know tequila is supposed to be sipped. I can't do that. Jen, Simon, do you guys do that?
Nope.
I'm not tequila. I ordered a rum and coke the other day at a bar, and a bunch of people called me a high schooler and made fun of me. So maybe I will switch to tequila. Whatever makes me look not prepubescent.
When I was in college, I went through this little tequila phase, and it just killed it for me. It's really never been my drink since.
Well, I've had way too many upside down margaritas, I think, in my day, and I know that's like the old like Jose Cuervo kind of stuff, but like I know it's gotten really fancy. Everyone has a tequila company, but I just don't drink as much these days, I guess.
We could start our own established tequila brand.
There you go.
For founders who are working too much.
The anti-tequila tequila.
Yeah. It's alcohol free, and
it's like a nootropic version of tequila.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Actually, speaking of which, I think I mentioned this before, but my friend out in Maine here, he started a gluten-free brewery called Orange Bike Brewing, and he and his wife started this, and they now are doing the first ever gluten-free non-alcoholic beer, which is kind of cool because you're kind of seeing that trend towards healthier lifestyle. So Interesting stuff. All right, final thought. Kind of goes hand in hand with alcohol, and part of the reason we don't drink as much is because alcohol wakes me up in the middle of the night. I know it does you too, Jen. It doesn't. It affects sleep, which is super critical. So
Sadly, that's something that happens as you age. So at first, when you're young, like you drink and you like sleep so great, and then as you get older, it actually ruins your sleep. It's like this cruel joke.
yeah, that is part of it. So
It's cool.
it is bad. So final thought, there's a new sleep study. It offers some tips on, the evening routine for better sleep. And so we'll leave that as our final thought. If you're going to try to get better sleep, the key is try to wind down a couple hours before bed, start preparing your mind and body, and do activities like listening to classical music, meditation, journaling, maybe playing some music, or just like doing some more quiet kind of things like that versus like, heavy metal and I don't know, doing a bunch of activity, right? So try to maintain a regular schedule and sleep schedule, and obviously think about, try not to think about the unfinished tasks. Think about what you've accomplished in the day, and it'll kind of help you wind down a little bit more versus thinking about tomorrow while you're trying to go to sleep, which is not always the best move. So hopefully this helps everybody sleep better. Hope you have a great week. Thank you guys for being here today, Jen and Simon, and we'll all see everyone soon. Thanks so much. Sleep well. Thanks for listening to the Somewhat Frank podcast. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe and leave us a review. We love the feedback and are grateful to have you as a listener. Have a great day.